Ever had that fleeting moment, like when you first wake up, maybe somewhere unfamiliar or, even in your own bed, and you just don't quite know where you are for a second?
Oh, yeah, that little jolt, that kind of blank slate feeling.
Exactly. It's fascinating. And that feeling, well, it's basically the entire experience in Christopher Nolan's 2000 film, Memento, dialed way up.
Right, Memento just throws us right into Leonard Shelby's world. Guy Pearce plays him, and it's such an intense performance.
He's a former insurance investigator, and he's desperately trying to find the man who murdered his wife.
But the huge obstacle, the core of it all, is that the attack left him with anterograde amnesia.
Meaning he just can't form new memories. Anything after the attack, poof, gone.
Yeah, pretty much instantly. So imagine trying to solve a murder when your brain basically hits reset every few minutes.
It's an impossible task almost. And that's where the film gets so clever, right? With its structure.
Absolutely. That nonlinear storytelling is, it's iconic now. It's not random, though. It's very precise.
You've got the color scenes running backwards.
In reverse chronological order, yeah. And then woven through that are these black and white scenes that move forwards chronologically.
And eventually these two timelines just collide. It's incredibly effective.
It really is. Because it's not just showing off. It's designed to put us, the audience, right into Leonard's head.
Yeah, you feel that disorientation. You're piecing things together just like he is, constantly trying to figure out what's happening, who to trust.
It mirrors his struggle perfectly. You're always feeling like you've just woken up, trying to get your bearings. Why do you think Memento still holds up so well after all this time?
Well, I think it's exactly that mirroring effect you mentioned. The film doesn't just tell you he's disoriented, it makes you feel it.
That structure, it forces you to think about how you make sense of things.
Totally. We expect stories to go A, B, C. Memento throws that out, and suddenly you're hyper aware of how you stitch fragments together, just like Leonard has to.
So let's talk a bit more about his condition. Anterograde amnesia. What does that actually mean for him day to day? We see him coping, but what's the reality?
Well, the core of it is his past before the attack is intact. He remembers who he was, his wife, his job.
Right, but any new information, a conversation, a face, a clue, he finds it just doesn't stick. It doesn't get transferred into his long-term memory.
So he might know what just happened for a minute or two, but then it's gone. It shapes everything he does, obviously. His whole investigation depends on fighting that constant fade.
And that's why he develops that amazing, really intricate system, the Polaroids.
With the notes written on them, and the handwritten notes everywhere.
And of course, the tattoos. They're like his external hard drive, his memory aids.
It's like he's building this external scaffolding, isn't it? Trying to prop up his present moment because his internal memory just keeps collapsing.
Precisely. It's a desperate attempt to create some kind of order, some kind of narrative, when his internal one is constantly dissolving.
And those little notes he writes to himself, like, we all need mirrors to remind ourselves who we are. They really hit home.
They do. They show that deep need for a stable self, a stable identity. The film really suggests that identity isn't fixed. It's a story we tell ourselves based on memory.
And when that story gets broken...
If your sense of self starts to unravel, his system is trying to hold that together.
Okay, and then there's Sammy Jenkins, this figure who keeps cropping up in the black and white scenes. Leonard tells his story. Another guy with memory issues.
Yeah, the Sammy Jenkins story it's unsettling. It runs parallel to Leonard's own situation.
And it makes you wonder, right? Is Sammy just a case Leonard remembers from his insurance days? Or is it something deeper?
That ambiguity is key. Is
Yeah.
Leonard just recalling this case to understand memory loss intellectually from a distance?
Or is Sammy's story maybe a stand-in for something in Leonard's own past? Something too traumatic to face directly?
The film definitely hints that way. It raises the possibility that Sammy is a kind of projection, a way for Leonard's mind to process his own trauma, which makes Leonard himself even more unreliable as a narrator.
Let's unpack that structure a bit more. The black and white scenes, they move forward chronologically, you said. Where do they usually happen? What do they show us?
They often take place in these very stark, kind of generic motel rooms. They feel a bit more grounded, maybe.
Yeah, like objective reality almost.
At first, yeah. We see Leonard on the phone, talking about Sammy, filling in backstory about his wife, his quest for John G. The camera's often more static, sometimes third-person angles.
Okay, and then the color scenes running backwards. How do they feel different?
Oh, completely different. They drop you right into the middle of Leonard's present chaos.
The
Subjected,
camera's right there with him.
always.
Yeah.
Moving with him, seeing what he sees, or rather what he's just seen as the scene rewinds. We get these intense moments, waking up next to a body, the stuff with Natalie killing Jimmy, but all playing out backwards.
Which just adds to the confusion, forcing you to work to understand cause and effect.
Exactly. And then eventually these two tracks meet. How does that convergence work?
It's the climax, really. The very last color scene we see is Leonard shooting Teddy. But crucially,
That's the very first scene of the whole movie.
right, it creates this loop, this sense of inevitability, and right after that, the final black and white scene kicks in.
Which takes place moments after Jimmy's death, the event that leads into the color sequence where he kills Teddy, and that's when Teddy drops the bombshell.
The huge reveal that he helped Leonard find the real killer a year ago, and he's been manipulating him ever since.
That's a massive rug pull for
Yeah.
us, the audience, and for Leonard too, even if he won't remember it. So what was Nolan's goal with this whole disorienting setup beyond just showing amnesia?
I think he explicitly wanted to deny us that comfortable linear progression, to force us into Leonard's experience.
He said something about putting the viewer in the mindset of someone constantly waking up unsure where he is and why.
Yeah. By messing with the timeline, withholding information, it makes us active participants. We have to build the story ourselves, question everything, just like Leonard.
And the visual style reinforces that, doesn't it? The contrast between the black and white and color.
Absolutely. That almost sterile, objective feel of the black and white motel room.
Contrasted with the gritty, close-up, sometimes shaky feel of the color scenes.
The color stuff feels so immediate, so subjective. Apparently they use 16mm available light sometimes. Gives it that raw, documentary feel almost. Traps you in his viewpoint.
Let's shift to the people Leonard encounters. Leonard himself first. He's such a compelling protagonist, despite everything.
He really is. You feel for him. He's smart, he's incredibly determined, but he's trapped.
Yeah, his grief and anger over his wife are palpable. They drive everything. You have sympathy even when he's doing violent things.
But then that creeping doubt sets in. Is he reliable? Is he maybe consciously or unconsciously shaping his own reality?
Definitely. And then there's Natalie, the bartender, played by Carrie-Anne Moss. She's tough.
Seems manipulative at first, right? But maybe there's more going on there.
She's very much in that femme fatale mold from classic noir films. Scarred, cynical. She figures out Leonard's condition pretty quick.
And uses it.
Yeah, she initially resents him, then definitely exploits him to get rid of Dodd, and later points him towards Teddy. Her motives feel complicated, shifting, morally gray.
And Teddy, or Gamel, Joe Pantoliano, starts off seeming like a friend, a helper.
Your classic buddy figure almost, giving Leonard clues, pointing him in directions.
Until that final black and white scene blows it all up.
Exactly. The confession that he used Leonard to kill someone else a year ago, after they got the real guy, and has been stringing him along ever since. It flips everything.
Yeah.
He becomes the clear antagonist, exploiting Leonard's vulnerability.
These characters really bring out the film's big themes. Obviously, memory and identity are front and center. How does Leonard's situation make us think about identity?
Well, it forces you to confront how much our sense of self is tied to memory. If you can't build new memories, how do you maintain a continuous you?
It suggests identity isn't some fixed thing, but a story we keep telling ourselves based on our past.
Exactly. And without that continuous thread, that conscious storyline, as some philosophers put it, your sense of self just phrase, Leonard's whole system is a desperate, flawed attempt to rebuild that story externally.
And the theme of revenge, it's Leonard's entire motivation, isn't it?
It consumes him. It's his only purpose after the trauma. But the film's take on revenge is pretty bleak.
Because he can't remember achieving it.
Right. Even if he gets the guy, there's no closure, no lasting satisfaction, because the memory won't stick. Teddy's line is brutal. Even if you get revenge, you're not going to remember it.
But Leonard fires back. My wife deserves revenge whether or not I remember it. Which highlights the tragedy, right?
Totally. It's a quest driven by a memory he can't fully hold on to, for satisfaction he can never truly feel. It becomes this endless loop, disconnected from any real resolution.
And perception, too. The film constantly makes you doubt what's real, the unreliability of memory, and maybe self-deception.
Oh, hugely. Memento hammers home how faulty memory is. Leonard even says memory's not perfect, but ironically, his whole world is built on these memory fragments and his interpretation of them.
And we see Natalie manipulate him, Teddy manipulate him.
But the really unsettling part is Leonard manipulating himself. He admits he's willing to lie to himself to get justice.
Suggesting he actively builds a reality that lets him keep going. Creates his own puzzle.
Yeah, maybe subconsciously constructing this quest to cope. The film really blurs that line between objective truth and subjective perception, makes you question how much our own biases shape what we remember and believe.
Which brings us to that ending, that final black and white scene. Teddy tells him the truth, and Leonard makes a choice.
A conscious choice to deceive his future self. He decides to burn Teddy's photo, keep Natalie's, and crucially tattoo Teddy's license plate number as the next John G. clue.
Writes that note. Do not believe his lies about Teddy.
Knowing full well Teddy just told him the truth, or at least a version of the truth. He chooses the quest. He chooses to stay in the loop, knowing his system will perpetuate the cycle.
He chooses purpose, even a fabricated one, over a potentially unbearable truth he won't remember anyway.
Yeah.
It's deeply unsettling, leaves you questioning everything.
Absolutely. It's an ending that refuses easy answers.
So, wrapping up, what are the core things people should take away from Memento?
I mean, it's fundamentally about that deep link between memory and who we are, our identity.
Right. And it shows the destructive side of revenge, especially when it's cut off from memory.
And maybe most importantly, it forces us to think about how unreliable our own perception, our own memories can be, and how easily we can fool ourselves.
And the film definitely struck a chord. Critically acclaimed, successful.
Oh, yeah. Sundance Awards, Oscar nominations, eventually added to the National Film Registry in the U.S. It cemented Nolan's reputation, and his influence is still felt.
It really does linger with you, makes you think about, the stories you tell yourself, the narratives that shape who you think you are.
And the motivations behind what you pursue. How much does your own perspective color your reality?
Definitely. Consider that. How does Memento's unique way of unfolding its story make you grapple with those big questions about memory, truth, and yourself right alongside Leonard?